Okay. Wait a minute. There we go. Okay, we are ready. We are live.
Okay. Usually I get some introductory things that I'm supposed to do. I don't have that this time, but I know that one of them is to ask that we have the information about the meeting format.
Okay, I'll go ahead and
the
run the
COVID
video.
Okay.
Can everyone see that okay?
Due to COVID-19,
Oh, there
this
now.
meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
I'm having a problem. I'm getting a double image of something that says leave meeting, got it. Does anybody know what to do?
You can just hit got it. It's letting you know that it's being recorded.
Okay, there. So with that, I'm just going to move on the published agenda format. And let me know if you think I left something out, please. Number 2 on the agenda is to do introductions. And so can you call the names, Terry-Ann?
Yes.
Good.
Member Anderson.
You called me? I couldn't hear.
Oh, sorry. Member Anderson.
Okay, I'm here, Charlie Anderson from West Cab.
Thank you. Member Clark.
Sorry, technical difficulties here.
Thank you. Okay. Member Cooney.
Here.
Thank you. Member Dodgelli is absent. Okay. Member Harrington.
Here.
Thank you. Member Ibarra is absent. Member Noya.
Here.
Member Ridgway.
Here.
Member Perry. Absent. Member Reese Brown.
Present.
Member Timothy is absent. Member Toth is absent. Vice Chair Smith is absent. Chair Abelson.
I'm here.
Hey, we have a quorum. We have 8 members present with members Dodgelli, Ibarra, Perry, Timothy, Toth, and Vice Chair Smith absent.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd also, before we get started in the depth of the agenda, I'd like to introduce our newest member, who's Dale Harrington from Walnut Creek. He actually lives in Rossmore and he represents the Area Committee on Aging as a service provider. Would you like to say a word or two?
Yes. Yeah, I was appointed by the Advisory Council on Aging. And I am filling out the term, I think, for Mary Bruins. Is that correct, Terrian?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in addition to being involved with the Area Agency on Aging, I'm also on the board of the Community Advisory Board and some of their committees. So I have involvement in several Contra Costa County committees.
Well, welcome. We're
Okay.
very happy to have you.
Welcome.
Okay, so with that, we'll, usually we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't see it here, but why don't we go ahead and do it? Dale, would you like to do
Sure.
that? As
Chair
our new-
Abelson,
Mhm.
we have removed that from our committee. So with this meeting moving forward, we're no longer conducting the pledge.
Oh,
of
we're no
allegiance
longer doing
during it.
that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then,
Jean Clark had her hand up. I don't know if she,
pardon?
Jean, you had your hand up, but then you put it down. Is everything resolved?
Yes, it was the clapping emoji to welcome Dale.
Got it.
Sorry, guys. I'm being fancy. I won't do it again.
Okay.
I
Before
threw
we,
myself too. I was like, did I? I thought it was clapping, not raise hand. Anyway,
It probably
welcome,
was.
Dale.
It probably was. Sorry.
does
No.
anybody else have any, what I'll call technical difficulties before we move on? Okay, I think we're all ready to move on then. The next item on the agenda is public comment, which is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak on an item that is on the agenda, you can do so as we discuss that item. Do we have any public speakers?
No, I don't see any hands raised,
Okay,
and we have no written public comment either.
okay, thank you. Then we will move on to the regular agenda items. And the first one is a recommendation to the Contra Costa County Authority Board,
Janet?
Transportation, what,
you need to
yes?
do- We need to do the consent calendar and have Terry Ann do the
Oh.
roll call on that.
Let me, oh, I'm sorry, I just somehow missed that. Okay.
Okay.
So, well, let's move to item number 4, which is the Paratransit Coordinating Council Summary of Actions from March 21st, 2022. Is there any discussion? Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, this is Charlie Anderson. I'll move approval.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there a second?
Jean Clark, I'll second.
Thank you, Jean. Is there any discussion before we vote? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Oh, no, we have to do roll call, don't we?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the roll call. And we have no public comment, either written or verbal.
Okay,
Member Anderson,
Yes.
Member Clark,
Aye.
Member Cooney,
Aye.
Member Harrington,
I must abstain since I was not there.
Member Noya,
I too will need to abstain. I was not present.
you can, just so you can vote if you were not there, but it's your decision.
Good to know for future reference.
So we'll record you both as abstaining. Okay, Member Ridgeway.
Approved.
Thank you. Okay, Member Reese Brown.
I will vote to approve.
Thank you. Chair Abelson.
aye.
Okay, so we have, let's see, motion passes unanimously with 6 members voting yes, and we have an abstention from Harrington and Noya. And then we have absences from Dodgelli, Ibarra, Perry, Timothy, Toth, and Vice Chair Smith.
Okay, with that, the motion carries, correct?
It does, yes.
Thank you. Okay, now we will move on to 5A, which is on the regular agenda items. And it's a recommendation.
Madam Chair, I just want to point out that Debbie Toth has joined us.
Oh, she has, okay. Welcome, Debbie. She,
Yeah, she's there, but she's on mute.
okay. Why don't we take a second and give her an opportunity?
Yeah, we'll give her a second to get settled.
Yeah. I'll, are you there, Debbie? Wonder if she can hear us.
Here, I'm just trying to get my sound connected to earpiece because I'm driving.
Okay, I can hear you now, Debbie.
Great.
Okay, we'll go ahead and continue with the meeting then. It'll be noted that she's here. The next agenda item is item 5A, and it's a recommendation to the Contra Costa Transportation Authority Board to approve Measure J fiscal year 2022-23 allocation for the countywide transportation for senior and people with disabilities program, which is also known as Program 15. Is there a presentation, Peter?
I'm just giving a verbal presentation, Janet.
Okay, that's great.
Apologies for me. Normally what we would be doing at this time is approving all of the claims as well as the funding. I've been behind schedule in getting the claim forms out. I still want to take the funding. The funding is all based on percentages from the expenditure plan. So I want to make sure that that gets to the authority on schedule in June for approval. But we will not release any of those funds. And this will be in the board report to the authority until the PCC has had a chance to approve the claims. It's my intention to get the claims out by the end of this week. And so we have some time in June to get those claims back and reviewed by the subcommittee prior to the July PCC. And then once the July PCC takes actions, I'm getting a win. Anyway, it went away. So I guess it's okay. I had a window pop up that said we needed to pay $10.99 because we were running out of our free hour.
Yeah, I'm getting that message too.
Okay. Well, let's hope we don't end it.
What do we do if we do end it?
Terry Ann, any thoughts on that?
I'm checking her Zoom account right now.
Okay. She's working behind the scenes to fix that.
Okay, well, but we individually will probably have to sign back on.
I would say sign back in if we get kicked out for some reason.
Okay. In the same way that we signed in for the first time?
Correct.
Okay.
So anyway, I want to take this to the authority. It's a total of $5,843,772. In your packet is a spreadsheet of how that's broken down by operator. There was a significant reconciliation from 2021 where we underprojected the funds based on COVID. And we just really didn't know how the revenues were going to come in. They came in way higher than we expected. Yay, Contra Costa County residents for spending sales tax funds in our county so we could get those funds. So there's a significant increase over kind of the regular funding. Also, we're projecting a pretty significant revenue stream through Measure J for fiscal year 23. We anticipate this to flatten out at some point, and we figure it's going to be probably in 24 that it will go flat. And that's just based on, a potential recession and inflation and stuff that's going on. So we're also seeing still some money flow in. During COVID, the state relaxed the collection of sales tax. They allowed you to do it over a 2 or 3 year period rather than paying it the same year. So we're seeing some of those old sales tax monies come in, and that's kind of boosting the numbers higher than what would be a normal year. So good news, and that funding will be available. And again, my plan is in July that the PCC would take action on the claims. And once the PCC approves those, we can start, sending the first payment of funds out. It usually takes us a little while to get the POs put together and all that stuff anyway. So there shouldn't be any delay in funding to the agencies. So that's my staff report.
Okay, so this is not an action item for
It
today.
is an action item.
It is an
We
action
want the
item.
PCC to recommend that the authority approve the funding resolution and allocation for Program 15, which is the countywide Measure J transportation services for seniors and people with disabilities fund.
Okay,
Madam
we-
Chair, I'll make that motion. This is
Thank
Charlie
you.
Anderson.
thank you, Charlie. Is there a second?
I have
And then
I
we'll
have my
discussion.
hand raised for questions. I have my hand raised for questions before we take the vote. This is
We'll-
Lori
we
Reese
will
Brown.
be having questions before we take a vote, but I just wanted to get the motion out there so we don't have to say it again. If that's okay. Is there a second to the motion?
This is Dale. I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Now let's move to discussion. Lori, you had your hand raised for discussion?
Yes, I have a brief question, and this is for Peter. Hi, Peter. I want to know who or has a subcommittee been selected yet to review the all of the details of the applications or the Measure J summaries?
We had at our
Project.
meeting last month, we put together a subcommittee, and it's,
Okay.
if I remember correctly, it's Janet and Kimberly Ridgway and Rosa, were you part of that? I'm trying to remember the third person. I'm sorry, Lori, I can't remember.
Oh, no, you don't have to, I don't need
okay.
names. Because
Yeah.
I wasn't in part of that meeting. I just didn't know. And I know that there usually is a subcommittee. I just want to make, just ask a question if
Okay.
that was done for that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Jean Clark has her hand raised, and
Okay,
Debbie Tove.
Thanks, guys. Just a couple of clarifications for me too. It's kind of I keep repeating every, just want to make sure. So we've already turned in claim forms for this or no?
No, not for this. Last
That
one
was-
was fiscal year 22. Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. And so then just an idea of when would these claim forms be due? Like when are they going to go out and when are they going to be due? About just,
I should have them out to you by Friday or on
Okay.
Friday probably. And then I haven't absolutely, I figure a month. I know we have a lot of new people that are going to be filling these out. So I'm going to make myself, available to help walk you through stuff if you have questions. I've kind of already figured that because I know that several folks this is probably their first time filling them out.
yeah, and these are going to be just a little more thorough than in the past because we're kind of moving out of
A little,
COVID,
yeah, a
right?
little more thorough than the last 2 years during the COVID
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
And again, this is measure 15, and then there's like a measure 15B, right? Is that going to come in a different?
Yeah, that's measure 20B, and that's
20B,
that's
thank
through
you,
West
Peter.
County, and WITTAC handles that for the West County operators. So I
Okay.
don't know if Joanna's on the line. I don't know if she has anything to say on that or.
I can't unmute fast enough, but I know Debbie's next, so I'm trying to put up my hand. But Janet, go ahead and run the meeting.
Well, we are talking, we can hear you speaking if that's what you're trying to do.
No, but I'm trying to raise my hand because I want to say something about 20B.
Okay, well,
Oh,
let's maybe go to
why don't we
Debbie
do
first.
that after we do that?
Debbie had her hand up. Let's go to Debbie first.
Okay,
and
Debbie.
then-
So I'm great with Joanna going ahead because I'm going to transition to a computer and be able to turn on camera and participate that way in about 3 minutes. So go ahead
Okay.
with Joanna. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Debbie.
So we'll move back to Joanna.
So I'm not muted. I am trying to wrap my head around this. Peter and I haven't had a conversation recently, but as I understand it, when we do the claim forms, everyone does their claim form, of which I then receive a copy of it, and there's an attachment for 20B. Are we still doing it that way, Peter?
Yeah, we haven't talked about it. Yeah, we can do it that way. That's fine. Basically, it just shows the money by operator. And then,
So I haven't seen the claim forms yet, and I know you and I had talked a little bit about what the format differences. And basically, in the last 2 years, I don't think we've really used the claim form to justify much because everyone was in a hurt because of COVID. But I know that I'm speaking on behalf of my boss, that he is very concerned about certain performances, and they're going to want to bring this to the board. And so we need to get this to our board before we issue any money. And that means we need to get the claim forms in. So I'm not really sure of the timing on any of this.
Okay,
Thanks.
Do you want to answer that question, Peter, at this time?
I think I kind of already answered that. I haven't absolutely determined the timing. So other than getting the claim forms out by Friday. But Joanna and I can work separately. We also don't have to attach the two. She can do WB or she can do 20B on a separate track.
Okay, Joanna?
So she and I can discuss those.
Okay, perfect. Okay, are there any comments or questions on 15?
I don't know if Debbie's made it to her desk yet, but Lori Reese Brown has her hand up again.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, I forgot to take my hand down, but I was going to ask, this is only for 15.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So the applications that come out would just be addressing that portion of it, correct?
Yeah. Historically, what I have done to save Joanna some time is just provided the claims to her so she can, so she can see all the programs and what they're doing.
Right.
For West County.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you so very much, Peter. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other? Is Debbie waiting to speak? Is Debbie? Debbie, are you there?
Chair Abelson, I can't fix the issue with the time running out. So I can't get it to switch or add a license to this user. So I think we're going to lose connection in less than a minute.
Okay, is there anything else on this agenda that we have to do?
Yeah, we have to take action on this.
I can send out a Zoom link
motion?
to everybody.
What?
Not posted with that information.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Look, I think if I get a kind of nod of the heads, it's not an official vote, but I'm going to go ahead and take this to the authority either way because I want to keep this on track.
Why don't I do it this way? If there's an objection to,
But nothing will be released until the Paratransit Coordinating Council has reviewed the claims and approved that. If there is a problem with any of the claims, that would be then go through the process of going through the CCTA full board if there is an issue with any of the claims before they're paid, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so
only with the claims that there's a problem with, if there is any. The other ones would still get.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with that.
okay. Is there anybody else who has a comment or a question? And we have a motion on the floor, if you remember from before, just because I wanted to capture it. And I believe if no one has any comments, do we have any comments from the public?
No public comments.
No public comments. Okay, I think then we're ready to vote.
We've got Member Clark coming back in now.
Oh, okay. I'll wait.
Perfect timing.
Member Clark here? Member
Got here,
Clark,
yes.
can you hear? You can hear us and we can hear you and yep.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're ready to vote on the motion. That was on the floor already, thank goodness. Because now I don't have to remember it. But just to clarify, Peter, why don't you restate it loosely?
So yeah, the motion is to recommend that the authority board approve the allocation of, I'm admitting John Cunningham, and I don't have the number right in front of me now. Again, I apologize. Things got shut down. So $5,800,000 and something for the program 15 countywide Measure J program 15 countywide transportation for seniors and people with disabilities, and that we would, even if they approve the money by resolution, it would be available but not be released until the PCC takes action on the claims in July.
Are there any questions? Oh, go ahead.
It was moved by Charlie Anderson and seconded by Dale Harrington.
Yeah. Are there any questions or further comments about that?
And just to let you know, Kimberly Ridgway has rejoined the meeting.
Okay. Welcome, Kim. Are you there, Kim?
Yes, I was trying to
There, I can hear you.
find my buttons. I'm back.
Okay, so we're about to vote on the motion. Could you hear that? What the motion is? Okay, so we're all ready to vote, I believe.
I have a question,
Okay, I don't know who you are though.
Debbie, and I have my hand
Yep,
raised.
yeah. Okay, I
Your
can't.
hand,
tell,
your,
sorry.
your raised hand kind of fits in, it kind of gets hidden for some reason, in the window behind you.
Okay.
But we
here.
can hear you.
We can hear you. Go ahead. Sorry.
There you go. Can you see that?
Yeah. Thank you.
So, I'm curious, you said, Peter, that there was a lot more revenue, tax revenue than we anticipated, right? And so the claims that you are asking the board to approve are a percentage or their actual expenditures? That's part A to my question.
They're percentages. So everything under this program is based on percentages.
So if there was zero service provided by the link, I'm just using that as an example. It could be Tri-Delta, it could be anybody. If there was zero service provided by an entity, they would still get $500,000 if that was their percentage share.
It depends on what they're claiming to use this year. So the reconciliation then moves forward to this year's expenditures or towards this year's program versus that year. So that year received money from a reconciliation previously. So it's just kind of this rolling reconciliation when we get the actual dollar amount based on what was projected. Does that make sense?
Not at all. Being honest. Yeah, maybe Lori can clarify for me. I just am wondering how money is. So I understand that we're doing this in arrears. You're asking for permission to be able to do it so we don't have to wait to actually pay people after the PCC goes through their process, so that once the PCC has gone through the process and approved it, providers can get paid. I understand all of that part. What I don't understand is if a provider didn't provide any services during that time period, they automatically get whatever that allocation is, regardless of the number of rides. Or, I mean, I'm just going back to what we used to review in claims review.
Well, if there was a previous year where they didn't provide any services, that's a whole different issue that we would have to address separately with that agency.
So that would be then stopped in the claims review process.
Correct.
For PCC. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Lori's hands up.
Okay, Lori.
Yes, and to kind of piggyback off of that question, so no service to minimum service, how is that weighed? I'm sure the subcommittee kind of looked at that in designing the questionnaire or, the form and the questions on the form to be provided. But what kind of weight would that carry? Because, we did have, with this COVID thing, services has been minimal. And I think some of the providers have been trying to do the best they can in regards to, providing adequate service for their clients. So and I'm sure I'm sure all the providers have provided some type of service. So what about minimal service? And just trying to design their service the best or as best they can, given the situation that providers are in.
So Lori, I think we look at that on a case-by-case basis, but in the past.
Did you hear all that? Because it seems like you froze.
No, I heard you.
Did
you
you
hear me?
Yeah, did you hear everything?
I believe I did, yes.
Yeah.
So in the past, and specifically San Pablo several years ago, they weren't spending all of their allocation. Their allocation is based on a percentage, and they put it in reserve. And so it would probably be a similar situation if there was a reasonable effort to provide services in accordance with, what they planned. Obviously, COVID was something that nobody expected, and it happened, and everybody's dealt with it in different ways. So I think that, the subcommittee would consider the reserve and how you planned on, putting it into your reserve, and how you would plan on spending that in the future. There's nothing in the expenditure plan. The only requirement really is that you provide the minimum service that you provided under Measure C. Any of the other funding could be potentially, redistributed in West County based on, input from WICTAC if they felt like things, performance wasn't happening under, reasonable conditions. Obviously considering COVID as an unreasonable, unexpected event. But like I said, previously, not to pick on Eugene, it certainly wasn't your fault, but San Pablo was putting money into reserve every year, and they ended up doing a study and figuring out a better way to run service, and they started using that reserve, and I think they've used it all up at this point. So that's what we'd be looking at doing, Lori.
The other
Yeah,
thing,
you mentioned, sorry, Janet. Janet.
It's a special circumstance. We'd have to look at those all on an individual basis.
Yeah, and sorry, Janet, you mentioned WICTAC, Peter, that we're not talking about the allocations that WICTAC has to vote on. We're talking about I thought we talked about program 15B. We're not talking about what WICTAC would have to vote on. I'm not on that piece of it. The question only pertains to what the PCC has to agree and vote on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to get confused on that. Thank you.
and I just want to make the comment that I think fits into this, that the one of the things that one of the agencies that's eligible for those funds can do, and I'm talking about 15, is set money aside in order to buy vehicles, because you can't necessarily accumulate enough funds, or don't want to accumulate enough funds in a specific year to actually buy an entire vehicle. So you have to accumulate it over several years. And that's a most acceptable use of that funds, correct, Peter?
Yes. So actually, I'm glad you brought up the point. I will add part into the claim that says, if you didn't use all of your previous claim money over the last, couple of years due to COVID or whatever, to explain how you plan on spending that reserve money in the program in future years, whether it be for capital, expenditures like buses, or some additional service or whatever. But we'll add that to make sure that those funds are considered as the PCC looks forward. Sorry, I got a fly in the room.
Okay, are there any further comments?
Charlie had his hand up next.
Okay,
And then Debbie.
Charlie?
So I just want to clarify that the action that we're taking today is to recommend to the authority board that they make up to the amount that's available for operators, subject
Correct.
to the PCC review. And if there is an issue that surfaces there, then there'll be a recommendation to not allocate the full amount, or something else, some other recommendation coming forward from the PCC.
Yeah.
But today we're just saying, make the money available up to the amount that's available, period.
Correct.
And that with the additional condition added that there will be a PCC review before money actually is issued to the agencies.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Good. I support that.
So Debbie's next.
And I would ask, thank you, Janet. This just brings up a bunch of questions for me about how transit providers can just bank that and reserve it as opposed to putting it into existing services. So not in this motion, but for a future agenda item to have a conversation about that would be helpful for me, because there are a whole bunch of providers too, like line 20A in the Central County, and then I think West County has a different line item. I don't know if it's 20A also, that that has other transit provision of services that have been happening. Like, so maybe it's worth a conversation, not necessarily in this agenda item, but for a future agenda item. And I don't want to lose that thinking, because this was an unprecedented situation and certainly deserves a little bit of talk.
Okay.
And yeah, thank you.
So going, sort of sticking with that for a moment, I was asking, when I asked the question, it was about the money set aside in reserves to buy vehicles with. And it would not, I don't think, be subject to that, because you still theoretically want to buy the vehicle. It's a replacement vehicle normally, or an expansion vehicle. That's one of the sources of funding for those vehicles, for that agency. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
To me, it does.
Yeah. Okay,
Jean has her hand up.
Jean.
Hi, guys. Thank you. I just wanted to agree with what Debbie said, and I'd love for that to be put on, agree with you, Debbie, that could be put on another agenda, so that I think it's great for all of us to kind of have a collective clarification of what those funds, we would recommend those funds be spent on, and of course, how do we track that and report that back to PCC? I know, again, as someone who's newer into managing a fund that did have reserves, I was kind of unclear, like, well, what is that? How are we report? So Debbie, thank you. And I'd love for that to be put on a further agenda of discussing, what do you do with the excess, or if there's reserves, and what is reasonable, an agreement amongst this coordinating council as to what we all collectively would think would be reasonable expenditures with a surplus, and how to report on them. I think that's actually really important. So thanks for bringing that up. I wanted to second that.
What I would like to add to that is that this, I believe, is the pot of money, sub pot of money, where it is split among certain operators, and based on a formula, which is based on such things as the poverty level and a number of other factors. Peter, maybe you remember them better than I do. But it's a formula. There is a formula, Peter, right?
There was a formula back in 1990 that was created on distributing the funds, the Measure C funds.
Mm-hmm.
And that formula was not that formula, just the percentage of distribution was carried forward under Measure J. So it was originally done by formula. That's correct.
So if we're having this agenda item, I think that aspect of it needs to be explained also.
Yeah, I think I did that a couple meetings ago, actually.
Well, yeah, but if people seem to not.
Yeah, and that's fine. I can do it again.
I think there's some confusion about what we're talking, about which thing we're talking about. It is a little bit confused. I can see if you weren't around from day one, that it would in particular be confusing. Okay, so anybody else?
Jean has her hand up, and
Jean?
Rosa, and I can't remember, I didn't recognize which one came up first, so.
I believe Rosa came up first.
Rosa. Yeah.
Okay, mine's really quick. Just going off of this last comment about the formula. Is the formula reevaluated at any point?
Nope.
Can it be, Peter?
It can be, but it can't change the percentages that are in the expenditure plan that were voted by.
Okay.
That was approved by voters without doing a revision of the expenditure plan, which would be very difficult at this point. We've only got about 8 years left.
Okay.
So now we are to Debbie, I believe.
Sorry, 12 years left.
Member Clark.
Don't want to underestimate. Jean.
Oh, Jean is next.
Oh,
No.
I was just gonna say that I'm not confused. I mean, Peter, you did a great job on that report. It was a thorough, probably like 45-minute report on all the history and the division. It was really great. I don't know if we necessarily need a revisit on that, just more on a, like I was saying, being from San Pablo, and there were some reserves, and Debbie, you had talked about what if you didn't provide services, are you still getting that money? Peter, you had said yes, but it will go into reserves, so there might be a possibility of that happening again. And what I wanted to bring forth is what I believe Debbie was also talking about, and I seconded, whatever, I said yes, that we put on as an agenda item to discuss if there were funds to be put in reserves due to lack of offerings because of COVID, that as the council, we would agree on some parameters around how that money should be spent, so that we can all say, oh yeah, no, that makes good sense. And we can have, I think, just a clearer, if we get questions from the public, these are the parameters in which we are, responsibly spending those funds, because we couldn't the past 2 years because of COVID and limited services.
Right.
So,
Okay.
like I said, I don't think the presentation needs to be done again, Peter. It was really thorough. Again, I was just talking about the potential of funds because of lack of service that might be happening in the next year or two.
So I'm a little confused about what you're saying. Are you, and this is just in terms of the process of this meeting, was that a motion that you just made, or is that just a comment?
It was just a comment following off of what Debbie said, which I agree. We don't want to lose the thought that on a future
Okay,
agenda.
I don't need to hear the whole thing again. I just want to know if it's a comment or not.
It's a
It was a
comment.
comment for a future
It's a
agenda item.
A comment
Okay.
for a future agenda item. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. And are there any further comments? We would like to be able to vote as recommended. And Peter, can you paraphrase that to bring us back in case we don't remember that far back? It was in the first half of our meeting, I guess you could say, before we got cut off by Zoom.
Yeah, it was so that the authority, that the PCC recommended the authority board approve a funding resolution for fiscal year 23 Measure J program 15 to establish funds available to allocate to the operators under the Measure J expenditure plan, but those funds be held until the PCC is able to review and approve claims from each of the operators to claim those funds. If the PCC does not approve a claim, then we'll establish a reconciliation process, which would involve going back to the board to get those claims approved that are not approved by the PCC.
Thank you. And do we have a record already written down of who approved, who made that motion?
Yes, it was a motion by Anderson and seconded by Harrington.
Okay, so are there any further questions before we take a vote? Seeing and hearing none. Is that something? I'm hearing none.
Comments. Yeah, we have no written or verbal public comments either.
Oh, okay, thank you. With that, then could you call the roll?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Clark,
Aye.
Member Cooney,
Aye.
Member Harrington,
Aye.
Member Noya,
Aye.
Member Ridgway,
Aye.
Member Reese Brown,
Aye.
Member Toth,
Nay, just kidding. Aye. Sorry, I just thought I would, shake it up for a minute. I'm just kidding. Aye.
Member Chair Abelson.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously with members Stogeli, Ibarra, Perry, Timothy, and Vice Chair Smith absent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, I believe we are ready to move on to the next agenda item, which is 5B, expiration of member terms. Peter, would you like to introduce this item?
Yeah, I'll introduce this item. I guess I have a question for everybody. I'm trying to open up the staff report from the web page, and I don't see an attached staff report. Terry Ann, can we confirm that the members got an attached report? Everybody.
Oh,
she was shaking
there
her
was a
head.
staff report. It was the last few pages of the packet.
Well, I'm clicking on the item B, and usually you get then links to the staff reports, but there is no link. So, so this,
I
yeah,
saw
this-
a staff report for the allocations, but I didn't see a staff report for expiring members. That wasn't linked
Yeah.
I
there.
did. I saw the list, the names of the three, it was three people. And I don't remember who they were. I remember that I was not one of them, and that was
yeah,
about
and
it.
that's
Oh,
what I'm afraid of. Let me,
Peter?
I know
It's in
that
the
it,
packet. If you go to the agenda packet, it's in there. It's just not in the HTML,
oh, okay.
but it's in the actual packet. And it's the three members were Vice Chair Smith, Member Ibarra, and Member Toth. Their terms
Okay.
are expiring on June 30th.
So if we want to take action on this, Debbie's the only one here to speak for herself. The other two are not here to speak for themselves. So if we want to take action with respect to Debbie, then we can bring this back next month or in July for the other two. Otherwise, we can bring the whole thing back with all three if Debbie isn't sure if she wants to make that commitment. I know Debbie's been trying to get off the PCC for years.
What would you like to do, Debbie?
That's a really loaded question.
I don't know.
We can give you a couple months to think about it.
Yeah, no, I will take the few months, and I will tell you why. It wasn't that I didn't want Choice and Aging to have that space. I just, I spend 30% of my time on transportation issues, and it's less than 2% of our overall agency budget. And it's because the system is just broken, and I don't want to get out of having a voice, but the bandwidth issue is real. And I had applied for 5310 funds and some Measure J money, and I had hoped to hire a transportation manager who could take on that role, and we lost our 5310 funding. So I just don't see that we're going to be able to hire a person to do that, which breaks my heart and my mind. But so I don't know. I do want to think about that, because I don't want to lose the voice of the people that we serve with Alzheimer's who are taking paratransit every day and could be benefiting from a more robust offering of accessible options. But I guess we shall see. I'll take the time if that's okay with the group.
So that'll be, I guess, next meeting, Peter?
Yeah, we'll do that next meeting. We'll just bring it back. And
Okay.
like I said, the other two aren't here to say one way or the other anyway. So
Okay. Thank you. So with that, we will move on to the next section of our agenda, which is reports. And the
can I just
ahead.
add, Madam Chair, we got the 10-minute warning again. So we have reports. Nothing at this point. Nothing at this point requires action. So I guess I would say if we get kicked off before we get through the end of the meeting, then we can just end the meeting there. Maybe when there's a minute left, we can just go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
I think I was just thinking we could go ahead and end the meeting now.
That's fine, unless maybe somebody on one of the items to report has something that's important that needs to be said, either SRAC or
No.
SNAC.
Not hearing.
Dale, anything important on Senior Mobility Action Council that needs to be brought up, or can we wait till next meeting?
We can wait until next meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay, so are we ready? Shall we just adjourn it at this point?
Yeah, we've got all the agenda items, I think, for July, so I think we're good to go.
Okay, so with that, the meeting is adjourned, and we will see you all on July the 18th at 2:00.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Take care. Bye.